What up, everybody? Welcome to the IAG Thursday Thing. This thing we do every Thursday where we all hang out, have a good time, chat with some cool people, maybe accidentally learn something, maybe accidentally just rot our brains. I don't know. Who knows what we're doing here. As usual, I'm joined by my co-host and partner in crime, Warranty. How you doing today, Warranty?
Hello, sir. I am doing great. How are you?
You know, that could be worse, dude. Weather's starting to get a little nice. I'm getting a little worried. Track time's coming quick. We got a lot of work to do, but you know, it's getting there. We got a lot of moving parts on Boogie, let me tell you. A lot of stuff happening right now, but we're getting there.
If that wasn't the case, I'd be worried. Everything happens at the last second. Probably works just fine.
Hey, we won a championship being idiots like this, so I don't know. We seem to have something figured out. This week we have a legend within the community. Literally YouTube famous. The dude is rolling in money. Guy's out of control. Like him and Mr. Beast are in a head-to-head battle of who's got more likes and loves.
Man, I think you got the wrong guy in here.
We got Smeedia on. That's actually his YouTube channel name. He's going to explain to me why that happened here in a minute. Real name is Tanner, and I'm going to call him Tanner because I know him as Tanner. But Tanner, how you doing, buddy?
Not too bad, you know, just fiddling through life, figuring things out day by day, like most of us
fiddling. That's what we are doing. We are fiddling.
We're fiddling, man.
So where did the name come from? I'm just going to ask that right out of the gate. Like, what? I need to hear the story. Yeah, what is Smeedia?
Okay, so when I was in the army, my boss was from Ecuador, and my last name's Smith, but he couldn't say Smith to save his life, so he'd always call me Smee. Whenever he'd refer to me, it would be Smee every single time. So that kind of stuck, and like all my friends in the army continued to call me just Smee, and that became like my nickname when I was in the army. And then when I got out, I was like, when I started doing the YouTube stuff, I was doing it for fun. Like I was just making DIY videos on how to install all these parts because I myself, when I started doing all this, I had no idea how to do anything. So I'd go to other people's videos and be like, all right, how do I install like injectors on my STI or something like that? And I kept getting frustrated because these people were like doing like these full-on vlogs and only like half-ass showing how to put the part in. So I got frustrated with it. So I started like making the videos. And when I was making the channel name, I was like, what do I call it? So originally it was Smeedia because I didn't know what I was doing with it at the time. Maybe I was going to do like fun videos of like cinematics and whatnot. And I did those every now and then, but it never really stuck. And then I just combined Smee and Media into Smeedia. And then I just kept it as that.
That's
a great name and a great story.
That is the best story that it could have been. So you're in the army. When were you in?
I was in from 2011 to 2015. I was a UAS operator, so I was aviation, military intelligence. So I flew drones.
Nice. Okay, cool.
Did you use an Xbox controller?
No, they don't actually use those as much as the internet makes. At least for the aircraft that I flew, we had it was on the back of a Humvee, and there's like 5 computers in there, and there's 2 people flying. One person flies the aircraft, the other one does all the camera stuff, and you just kind of sit in there for 13 hours a day.
Okay, wow. That's a cool job.
It's very boring.
Futuristic. It's futuristic.
You say that was way cooler than what I did.
Well, you'd think that you'd see some like wild stuff, but like there's like people.
I'm sure most of the time there's like, hey, there's something that looks like a garbage bag over there. Can you go look at a garbage bag? And you'd go look at a garbage bag.
It's a lot of it was that. There's also something like, dude, you'd be surprised what like people do at like 3 a.m. when they don't think anyone's watching them. I've seen some weird stuff happen on the side of freeways, man.
Oh, I bet.
Yep. I've seen some weird stuff go down.
Put it away.
Yep. I totally believe that. You know, best part is keeping another soldier out of harm's way. So can't be mad about that.
Man, most of the time, to be honest, most of the time we didn't even watch like our own people. We would just watch random people. Like that's what they'd have us do, is just go fly around and look at random stuff and try to find stuff.
Hey, go look at things.
Yeah. They'd send us like random coordinates and be like, go look here. And we'd go fly out there, look there. We'd be like, there's nothing here. Why did we just spend 40 minutes flying out here?
What you do is like a lot of great YouTube information. So you are one of the best sources for Subaru stuff on YouTube. Like, I'll just hands down say that. Like, you've done some great work, and some of your videos are timeless. And if so, not to pat your ass too hard, but you've been doing a great job of that. What got you into this though? Like, where did you start? Like, I want to film myself screwing around with a Subaru. Did it start with Subarus? When did you get your first Subaru? Let's hear your journey into Subaru content making.
So, the Subaru stuff started when I was like 16. I got my first car. It was a 1988 Subaru XT6. Had a blast in that thing. I love the wedges.
Oh, okay. You just gained like 30 points in my
Bro, I absolutely love the wedges. They are one of my favorites. I've been trying to find a clean example of a wedge for years, and they're all insanely overpriced now or just clapped out at this point. So, all of the clean examples of wedges are pretty much gone now. But it started out with my XT, and then unfortunately I had to sell that car when I joined the Army, because I went into the Army right after high school. So I only had that car for about 2 years. Sold that, and then moved over to Nissan for a while, and I was playing with Nissans for a bit. And then I ended up with an 08 STI as like my first Subaru, I guess you could say, or my first Impreza WRX STI platform.
Yeah, modern
and
Subaru.
Yeah. So keep them. I'm not going to go through every single one of them because I've had like damn near 50 of these cars at this point.
No.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I've had a lot of them. My first one though was like STI WRX platform-esque, was my 08 STI, and that one was my first introduction into really like playing with the boxer stuff. I remember I had to swap the turbo inlet out on that thing, and it was my first time ever. It was the first thing I actually ever had to do to that car because the OEM one had ripped near the turbo. And I remember sitting there in my buddy's driveway trying to rip out this stock inlet because I had no idea what in the hell I was doing. I remember loosening clamps. We grabbed like olive oil from his kitchen. We were trying to lube this thing up and rip it out, and it was a nightmare. I gave up and I fucking towed the car to the dealership, and I had them do it at that point. I was like, I can't do this. I have no idea what I'm doing. And from there, we started doing more simple mods. I remember I did, at the time, it was a Crawford AOS. I think it was their V2 when they came out with that a long time ago, and that took me like 2 days to install. I had a V2 access port on that car. This is when V2s were still out.
Yeah, boy.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So doing that, and I did like basic bolt-ons on that car. I got it up to like 340 horsepower, which at the time I thought was an absolute ton compared to the stuff that I'm doing now. And then from there, I sold that car, bought an 07 STI because I've always loved the Hawkeyes. So I sold my 08, got an 07. That's when I got out of the Army, moved back up to Washington, and then started flying my 07. And then that's when it went down the rabbit hole of Subaru after Subaru after Subaru after Subaru after Subaru. And I think realistically, I probably had 45 to 50 WRXs and STIs at this point. And then the one that stuck, the one that I actually kept, is my 17 STI, which I still have now.
That's your blue one. Your light blue one. That's just wrapped, isn't it? Or did you paint it?
No, it's wrapped Miami blue.
Sick. Great color.
I like when I picked the color for it, I was like, it's a 6-cylinder. I'm like, it's kind of like a wannabe Porsche. So I was like, I'll put a Porsche color on it. So I got the Miami blue from a Nosatech and then just wrapped it in my shop.
That is
very nice.
You went down the deep end. We're going to talk a lot about that car. So that is what I wanted you on this show for the most, because you're a perfect example of what I want to talk about, and you can definitely speak a level of truth to that than most people.
Yeah, I know where this is going.
But we got some news, and I want to chat with you since you are a bigwig within the Subaru community and well respected by everybody. We figured we would have a conversation about some of this week's news with you involved, because some of it's kind of interesting. So
I'm jealous of one of the points. We'll get to that one in a minute.
Yes, that'll be the last one we get to. I'm really stoked about that. But the first thing we're going to talk about is the legacy. The legacy in the U.S. domestic market is dead. Is it dead everywhere or just the U.S.?
The legacy is ending.
Everywhere, I think. Yeah.
So for years...
No. It's just U.S. It's just U.S.
Oh, really?
Okay.
I was reading the article on it yesterday.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, they well, from the ones I read, they only alluded to that they were pulling the plug on it in the United States because they were getting beat out by literally every other manufacturer's sales numbers.
Well, let's be real. It doesn't make sense anymore.
Well,
Okay.
the thing that's dumb about it is they don't even offer the FA24 and the entry level Legacy. You don't get it until you get into the XT or the touring model. So you don't even get it. You get the FB25 and everything. That's like not their entry level version of the Legacy.
Hey, and this is no slam on I love Subaru, okay? But you got to think of where this thing fits in the market and what they would have to charge for it. Okay? Yeah. And for you to you'd be cross shopping it with like an Accord, you know, a Camry, things of that nature. And you
have you seen those new Camry?
Dude, that's what I'm saying.
You can get them in all-wheel drive. I didn't know this till I built one out on their website yesterday.
So I got a hard time seeing with especially the Impreza being basically the same size and the Legacy being a slightly nicer Impreza but slower.
Yeah.
Because it's heavier. I don't see how that plays. So and they're all on the same platform now. So for the longest time, if you look at how Subaru was building stuff, the Legacy would get the new stuff, okay? Like, let's talk about multi-link rear suspension. It actually came to the Legacy before anything else. That was like 2000, I think, was the first time they actually did the multi-link rear suspension. And Subaru soldiered on for another damn near 8 years with the McPherson rear end. So we go even further back, and the Legacy chassis, the Gen 1 Legacy, was the first one to get like the EJ and all of that stuff. They even used it in Rally. And then behind that was the Impreza, which was kind of a smaller and maybe kind of refined version of the Legacy. And then you move a few years past that, and then the Legacy got a bunch of new stuff, and the Impreza, you know, took a few years to catch up. And it like that there was always two platforms, and the newer stuff would show up in the Legacy or weird stuff that they were testing. Remember the front-mounted turbo
like those
Legacies?
bottom mount turbo kit?
Yep.
Yes.
Like,
that's
and
right.
look what turned into the WRX a few years later with a bottom mount turbo to see if that even made sense. They sold those in fairly low numbers, probably trying to see if like, hey, would this be reliable enough to sell, you know, in a product that we do a lot more of. So they were a little more willing to like try things with the Legacy. But I mean, let's be real, since its heyday in the mid 2000s, it really hasn't offered anything like extra. You know what I mean? Like the mid 2000s Legacies still to this day, if you were cross shopping them with a BMW, you could understand why. Like if you sat in it, closed the doors, they've got that nice almost European thunk to it. Like it was a really nice car, but then it just was kind of like a larger Impreza and like just a platform for like the Outback, you know, and then it just grew into obscurity. And now the Impreza has been growing and growing and growing. It's the same damn size. I'm blown away it exists. It stayed around as long as it did, but there's no use for it anymore. Yeah, because everything's on the same platform. If you don't have two platforms, or you don't have like one test bed, one grinder run of the mill, like pump as many out as you can platform, there's really no point. If you're just going to shove them all into one platform anyway, what's the point?
Well, it also seems like the Legacy has become more of like commuter-esque, because back in the mid 2000s, the Legacy was, I'd consider it on par with the WRX at that point. I mean, it was tunable. You could modify it. You could make power with them. You look at them now. Now they're just economy cars.
Yeah.
They don't feel nicer on the inside. Like it doesn't feel like a nice car. The mid 2000s ones still to this day feel like a nice car. You know what I mean? And like you have a very hard time explaining to somebody why this base Legacy costs more than this base Impreza. It was really easy to explain that in like 2005.
Hey, you'd get like the fake wood grain trim, you'd get the leather seats, heated seats, the giant moon roof, like all these like extras that you wouldn't get on the Impreza platform.
A ton more sound deadening, like just the touch surfaces were nicer. It was a nicer car.
Yeah.
So
hold on now. I'm looking at Wikipedia, which is never wrong, as we know. Production of the Legacy ended in Japan, or worldwide, according to Wikipedia, in 2020. Meanwhile, it kept going in North America until 2025. So the last model year will be this model year.
Really?
So,
Yep. It,
I didn't know that they
it's
ended
dead.
it in Japan.
Yeah,
She did.
It's gone. So
I
Legacy
mean, it makes
sold
sense
about.
because they were making the legacies in the Indiana. I think it's the Indiana
Yes.
factory. They were making them in
Yes,
the
I
U.S.
Indiana. That's right.
But the reality of it is the legacy is really not going away. It's just the legacy model name is. In
Mhm.
all reality, and it's how it's always been, is a Forester is a big Impreza, and a Outback is a big legacy.
I
Mhm.
thought a Crosstrek was a big Impreza.
Well,
That's a regular
Crosstrek
size lifted Impreza.
That's a lifted basic Impreza. A Forester's like a tall Impreza.
Yep.
Well, then how is Subaru justifying keeping the Crosstrek and the Impreza, or the Crosstrek, the Forester, and the Outback all? Because they're all pretty, in my eyes, they're all
What I
pretty much
don't
the same
understand
car.
is I think the next one on the chopping block is going to be the Forester.
Really?
But they
Wow.
sell. I really do, because the Crosstrek is what the Forester used to be, which was the
That's true.
small,
Yes.
economical, reasonably priced thing that it's not too big, it's not too small. You don't pay a ton for it, but it's got a ton of utility. Like, I love my Crosstrek. It's slower in balls, but I love my Crosstrek. And I think if you're cross shopping a Crosstrek and a Forester, you're gonna have a very hard time figuring out why you're spending more money on that.
True.
Yeah.
But an Outback makes sense. And it's a lot longer. It's a significantly larger vehicle. But
It
a
is,
Forester really isn't. And a
The
Forester's
Forester
grown
and the
into the
Crosstrek are
size of a
pretty comparable.
freaking Explorer.
Can you do the? Oh, they're still not offering the Crosstreks with the FA24. They're still FB in those, aren't they?
Yeah. So you can already tell by what they're offering how much they're forgetting it.
Yeah.
So
If they just
Legacy.
put the FA24 in the Crosstrek, I mean, it'd pretty much be the same thing
Oh,
with just a
gosh.
different body.
Dude, if
Yeah.
they put the FA24 DIT, the turbo engine, in the Crosstrek and called it the Gravel Express, I would camp at Subaru to buy that.
People would lose their minds.
I don't understand Subaru. Like, you have
Dude, it
the
doesn't.
parts
It's
to
like
do
they're.
this.
I see. Here's how I see Subaru, and this will kind of segue into the later stuff that we're going to be talking about. But it seems like Subaru is turning into Toyota 10 years ago, where they're just focusing on the econo boxes, and that is it.
Well, they're focusing on what's making them money.
Which is the econo boxes right now.
Which
Because-
yeah, the Crosstrek is selling like hotcakes. Outbacks are selling like hotcakes, which really isn't an econo box, but it sells like hotcakes. And yeah, those
I
things are
consider
just
that an
money.
econo box. You don't think that's an econo box?
What, the Outback?
Oh, the
it's a
Crosstrek.
nice
I thought you
car.
said the Crosstrek.
No, the Crosstrek's an econo box. 100%.
Okay, I misheard you on that.
Crosstrek is 100% an econo box.
Okay,
it's like, yeah, it's 100%. Yeah, it's not even comparable. But
Then
and
you've
then
got
you have
the Ascent
got to
and the
keep us
Solterras
fanboys
now.
happy, so that's why they give us the WRX. But they're not. I still don't think their heart's in it. You know what I mean?
Bro,
And I'm
have
with
you seen the Solterra stuff they're pushing? Like, they are struggling with that.
That's the
With
worst
what they're
car.
offering right now, they're offering 0% APR on Solterras with discounts.
That's crazy, because that 5-6 years ago that wouldn't have been surprising, just because money
Where the
was so
economy was.
expensive.
But if
Right
you look
now,
at it today,
like, they're losing their ass doing 0% financing.
right?
Yeah, that car is just it's a brick. It's probably the worst electric vehicle on sale right now.
It's just
So-
it's huge too.
Dude, Toyota is anti-electric vehicle right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm about it. Toyota's killing it.
Right? Man,
I wonder how mad Toyota is about the oil pan situation in the BRZ, but
are we? Hold
story for
on.
another day.
Well, we're gonna have another conversation here in a
Okay.
second. Did
Before
you
we
hear
go
what
on.
the EU did?
Yeah.
I got to find out if warranty did.
Well,
Warranty?
you told me, and then I looked it up. So the BRZ is being discontinued in the EU due to safety standards that cannot be integrated into the car, which I am pretty shocked
What
by.
I read on that though is they were only planning on keeping it there for 2 years from the initial release.
Yeah, because they after 24 or 25, they have to integrate these safety features to be able to sell the car, and that includes vehicles that are already on the lot. They have to be retrofitted, which is crazy.
What?
Yes.
Wow.
So-
Yeah, I would have canned it too.
I went and looked up what's the safety tech. It's called GSR2, and it includes such things as advanced emergency braking, which I have in my car, alcohol interlock. I don't know what that actually means and how that
Wait, a
applies.
factory alcohol interlock.
I can't tell. This is just a headline. I'd have to go look into it. Number 3 is driver drowsiness distraction. So this is where it's like Face ID. It just scans your face to make sure you're not falling asleep at the wheel. Black box, lane keep assist, and intelligent speed assistance, which either by GPS or by cameras reading the signs, figuring out how fast the road is. For now,
This is why I like my old cars, man.
For now, it's just a warning, but in the future, it could actually slow down the vehicle and override your speed choice, which is crazy.
I can override your speed choice. What if it's an emergency situation?
I don't think
in the future. We're talking about theories right now, but
I think
that's on the table.
Yeah.
We lived through the greatest time of cars, and we didn't even realize it.
Right.
I think, as far as Subarus went, I think basically the end of the STI, because they couldn't implement a lot of this stuff, safety standards and emission standards and whatever. It was basically 2020 was the end. We're gonna get some oddities that pop out. Like the new BRZ GR86, and you've got the Corolla, the GR Corolla and stuff like that. But for the most part, I think we have lived through the best. So
never know
make sure you take care of your shit, people.
Until it's too late. That's right.
Oh man, that sucks. Honestly, like, it's such a good car.
Yeah,
it is.
People just don't like. You have our buddy Noah from Illinois. He's running around in your car. Was it today?
Today. So I needed
What
to.
did he say?
He said, "Oh, I'm going to find it."
Yes, the quote is beautiful.
The quote is.
Long story short, he's an OG WRX guy. He was
a
an
good-looking
moderator
man
on
too.
Nasiak. Like
his quote, I don't think I could own a red car, but the amount of looks I get driving your car is wild. So
you have the Gen 2 BRZ, right?
Gen 2 BRZ TS, and it's in red.
Oh, nice! You got the TS, so you got the fancy one. I had
Yes,
I pre-ordered one when they first came out. I only ended up keeping it for 7 months just because it was too small for me to daily. But I absolutely loved that thing. Such an improvement over the first gen.
Yes, it's a great car. It is slept on. I think Subaru only sells about 10,000 a year, and GR86 is probably double that. But man, it is such a good car.
They're fun.
I'm in love with it. And then
quicker.
Not only they notice, like, I've got a 13. I've said this a million times, but I got a 13 with every conceivable NA mod, with a ton of suspension work in it, and the car is great. Other than the fact that it's slower in balls. Warranty's car, bone stock, will run for me. Even like a just completely tweaked E85 tune, the best possible header you can have, you name it, Warranty's car runs for me. Now,
why are you still naturally aspirated? That's the question here.
Me?
I wanted to do some things with it. Like, I was thinking about a GLTC car. I was actually thinking about an H6 swap at some point. I had a lot of stuff in my brain. Classing is what kept me. But what I really wanted is I didn't want to make a ton of power with the car because I wanted a really low maintenance track car to just go beat the snot out of. And I couldn't get away with making speed with power. And it works really well for that.
Blue supercharger.
I know, they're great, but then it kicks me out of a bunch of classes and shit. I don't know if I want to do that.
Fair, that's fair. You got rules you got to follow. I get it.
So,
Dewey did a roll against a supercharged first gen BRZ. This was a while back, and it was pretty close, all things considered. And he was like, "Yeah, I don't really need it."
It wasn't enough to make me go, "I need this."
Right.
That's fair.
So, but I'm pretty sure if we did that same roll race today, I bet you Warranty would have taken them.
Oh my gosh, that's wild.
Those new ones, they're so much more. They're way more responsive and way more quicker. Huge improvement.
We took the IAG BRZ to the track the other day, doing some testing on some parts. We were on Summit Point, Maine, and I was beating the snot out of that car. The only thing done to it is a good set of pads and some tires. That's it. Dude, I was wreaking havoc out there. I had that car right up the ass of a bunch of full blast race Mustang GTs, like on slicks and everything. I was eating up this 981 Cayman. He had to get out of my way. He came up to me, like, "What are you, a pro driver or something?" Like, dude, we're having a riot out there. That car is so good right out of the box, and it's stupid. It's stupid how good it is, and honestly, I think it works probably better in Europe than it does here. And that really sucks because those people are getting robbed of a great car.
Well, hey, they still have the Miata though, so they still got something.
That's true.
Good for them.
So everybody except the Dutch,
at least they got
they can drive a Miata.
Yeah. All right. Last thing I want to talk about in the news.
I'm actually mad about this one.
I'm mad, but not.
I'll let you break it.
So
Go for it.
Mexico is getting the Lavorg.
Why aren't we?
Wild.
I don't know. Is Mexico still left-hand drive?
Yes, it is.
Dude, what do we got to do to get that?
That's what I'm saying. They won't give us the Lavorg. They'll give it to Mexico, but they won't give it to us. And the thing is, we're going to start seeing them in the States too, especially those southern states where people come up from Mexico.
Dude, I want a
Oh, it's
Lavorg.
coming in manual as well. I'm looking this up.
I want a Lavorg.
Bro, if they gave us a Lavorg, I would pre-order one. I would get on that wait list.
I don't know what I'd buy first. Would I buy a Lavorg or a Gravel Express?
I'm taking the Lavorg all day.
Gravel
Dude,
I don't know.
wanted
It'd be
Lavorg
right there.
since they came out
But
with them in,
man,
like,
the
2015.
Lavorg, it's so good. It even, honestly, I think it even fixes the way the 22 looks a lot. It looks better as a
Dude,
wagon.
it looks way better as a wagon.
It's so good.
I'm upset
my
about
gosh.
this. They will not. I think the reason they won't do it is because they would absolutely destroy all of the U.S.'s sales numbers of all of their other cars.
I think
the
they're.
people
I think it
buying
hit Outbacks hard.
100%. And the WRX sales.
They don't call it a Lavorg in Mexico, by the way. They call it the WRX
That's what it is, though.
Wagon.
But it is a
Whatever.
Lavorg.
It's a Lavorg.
It's a WRX sports wagon.
It's a Lavorg.
No, we know it as a Lavorg, but man, they are pulling no punches.
We don't know it as anything. We just know it with the Japanese guys since they got it first.
Yeah.
Turbo 2.4, manual or CVT. Must be
Right?
nice.
You can actually get it in a manual there.
So my understanding is it was only coming in CVT.
That's what I thought.
Man, if I were to pick one of those up, dude, you know how nice that thing would be? Like, it's so easy with those FA24s to make, that 400 wheel with like a little bit more torque.
Dude, it'd be perfect as a daily. It'd be perfect.
God, it'd be incredible, dude.
It'd be the perfect daily, but I'm telling you, dude, it would demolish their WRX sales and probably some of those Outback sales.
I think it would kill the Outback sales. I really do.
Yeah.
If they released it here as a WRX sports wagon, like it would you could wrap it into WRX
Hot
sales.
take.
You know what I mean?
Hot take. Kill off the Legacy and just call this a Legacy and bring it to the States. Legacy wagon.
Yeah.
Yes. Agreed.
Yes.
Perfect. Then they got their Legacy sales back.
Yes.
Honestly, that's a great idea. They should say, "Oh, just kidding. Legacy's coming back in a wagon."
I wonder if they're scared of us. And my reason being is like, if I would be a little worried that they'd only give us the CVT, okay, and for gas mileage reasons or whatever, I would be a little worried about that. And I wonder if they're worried that we're gonna murder CVTs, especially since we're gonna add weight to it. And we're gonna modify the thing.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Cobb would jump all over that for access ports as soon as they came here. People start buying them up, modifying them.
Mm-hmm.
My buddy Chris I guarantee the guts of this thing are the same thing as my buddy Chris. He runs the front of Six Star. He's got a CVT WRX, and Cobb's already got him all the shit to tweak with it. So they're playing with that now. But the reality is, you'd have to, like, no matter how good they make it, you'd have to think about the CVT.
That's true.
TR 690. That's the big dog, I think.
So, man,
It's the better of the bad CVTs.
I love that thing.
Jealous of it.
But either way, you start modding CVTs, you start leaning into them hard.
Dude, they're gonna start screaming. You start making power on those CVTs. Dude, we see it all the time. The CVTs be screaming. Dude, they be crying.
CVTs be screaming, dude. And that's gonna kind of be my segue. That's my segue. So people want to build crazy things, high power CVTs, things of that nature. That is going off the beaten path, and that can be dangerous.
That is very dangerous.
Well, it's not dangerous. Bag of news today.
man, I think news was great today. That can be dangerous. That can be big danger. So, if anybody knows about wandering off the beaten path into the danger zone, it's our boy Tanner here.
I like your segue. That was good.
Dude,
He's a professional.
I tried, man.
That was good.
So Tanner,
Dewey.
you have this amazing 17 STI in Miami blue, which
Right now
I
it's
think looks
paperweight.
phenomenal.
It does,
And it's
right?
a paper.
Thank you. It is a paperweight, though.
It is a paperweight right now. I want to hear about the history of modifying this vehicle to about where you are now in kind of a shortened version. And we're going to talk about where you sit right now and why. You know, I'm sure it started with some basic modifications and then it just went right off the deep end.
It actually, I mean, it didn't start off the deep end. So originally when I bought the car, I bought it as a daily driver. I told myself I wouldn't modify it, right? Obviously, that did not work. So then, I mean, it was funny enough, I had actually sold that car and I got it back. Weirdly enough, I sold that car. I had like done a little mini build on it. This was before YouTube, and then I traded it in for a Maserati. Weirdly enough, and the dealership messed up on the paperwork, and they wanted like an extra down payment or something like that. I told them just to give me the Subaru back, so I got the Subaru back, and then that's when we started doing all the little YouTube stuff, basic bolt-ons. The car, it had like an FP blue on it. ID 1050s, I think. All these like the basic stuff that people do, right?
Yep.
And took it over to Surgeline, had Chris over there tune it, which by the way, awesome tuner for anyone in the Pacific Northwest who's looking for like a really like a good spot. Surgeline is a really good place to go if anyone's looking.
They're also an IAG certified engine installer.
Look at that. The plug, getting the plug in there too.
Gotta get it in there. I gotta keep them happy up there. You know what I mean?
Great name for a shop, Surgeline.
Surgeline. Well, it used to be
all about
something. Now it's Surgeline. But so I had the car tuned by Chris. It was phenomenal. And then the clutch started slipping. And I was doing a live stream one night, and we were joking about putting a 6-cylinder in there because the clutch was slipping. And then it happened. And then it just started snowballing because it was like 2 a.m. one night. I was watching YouTube, sitting on my couch. I had my laptop in front of me. I hopped on eBay, and I found a EG33 long block. And I bought it for like $1,000, and it just showed up. I was like, I guess we're doing this. And at the time, like keep in mind, I am fresh out the womb when it comes to like modification stuff. I barely knew how to install injectors. I barely knew how to pull an engine. I didn't know how to do anything at this time.
Man, you came a long way in a short period of time. I'm kind of proud of you, bud.
Yeah, I appreciate it. That car. Like when I went into this, I had absolutely no idea what I was getting myself into. Because in my mind, I'm like, dude, this will be so easy. It's a Subaru engine. It's a Subaru car. It'll just go right in. It'll just. And I remember going onto like the 6-swap page on Facebook. And I was like, dude, you guys, like, I thought I was making incredible breakthroughs. I was not. Like, this has all been, like, there are people way before me who have done and measured this stuff before. I was like, oh my gosh, the bell housing is the same. It'll bolt right up. And I thought the crank and the flywheel layout, it's all the same. I thought I was like,
mechanically, Subarus are very simple and totally like Legos. Everything past that is not.
So. Dude, it was wild. So then I started mocking things up and test fitting. I'd pulled the EJ and my old EJ, and someone local to me had bought it for their 2.5 RS. They were doing an STI swap in it, so I gave them a good deal. I think I sold this long block, like a fully dressed drop-in engine for like $3,000.
Oh my
gosh, you're
right. I didn't know how much it was worth at the time,
brother.
So either way, let's pause real quick. Or at this point, are you already making YouTube content or not? I don't remember.
Yeah, so I started making the YouTube stuff when the STI still had the EJ in it, and it was a stock EJ at the time. So I was doing like downpipe videos, injector videos, AOS videos.
And honestly, there needs to be that stuff because Nasiak's dead, and everybody goes to YouTube for everything. And this, like I said earlier, you're great for that. So you think in your whatever 2
Hubris.
days of you're gonna be able to you just start looking shit up and you're like, oh my god, this is gonna fit in your brain. At any point did you go, I can't believe nobody else is doing this?
No, because I saw the so one of the main reasons that made me pick the EG33 over the EZ30 and the EZ36 is I saw Andy Forrest's car and I was like, dude, I want that. Little did I know how much money Andy Forrest had in that car.
So at any point did you go, like I'm saying, like, I can't believe more people aren't doing this?
Yes.
Okay. That's the thing. If that ever hits you guys, you need to ask the question why. And if you don't ask why, the rest of this story is why. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Right? And dude, at the time, I'm like, dude, the engine's only $1,000. All this other stuff. I was like, I was finding them on like Facebook for $500, and this is before they got harder and harder and harder and harder to find.
Yeah.
So I'm like, dude, there's like these things are all over Facebook and eBay and whatnot. And well, we it just it went to a weird route after that.
Well, sure. So yeah, I'm assuming you bought yourself a $1,000 engine or something to start with, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we got ourselves a $1,000 EG33.
And keep in mind, this thing had like 170,000 miles on it.
I'm sure it did, but I'm sure when you got it, it was in okay shape. Now, at what point after, I'm sure you stuffed this thing into your engine bay and you're like, okay, the radiator's kind of close, I gotta fuck with that. And like, this is...
Oh, there you go.
And then I'm gonna turbocharge it. Okay.
Now you're back. I got you again. So I didn't hear anything you just said.
Okay, so at what point so you got this $1,000 engine, you stuff it in your engine bay, okay? Yep. And you're sitting there staring at it, and you're like, I gotta move the radiator a little bit. Maybe that's gonna be a little close.
Nope,
maybe some
didn't even cross my mind.
Okay, so like awesome. Were you looking at like, okay, I know I'm gonna have to make a header for my turbo because I'm obviously gonna turbocharge it. Like
you're jumping way ahead of where I even was.
I want to hear hear where this went with you. So is the thought process I want to hear.
The thought process in my mind at the time, and this is if anybody is contemplating doing a swap, don't do this. What I did is I tore down the EG33 completely. I tore down the case halves, everything like that. And my extent of test fitting this engine was I took one of the case halves, I bolted it to the transmission. I said, we're good. And then I went to Home Depot. I grabbed a whole bunch of totes. You're right. I grabbed a whole bunch of totes and I put the stock heads, the stock case halves, the crank, all this stuff in these totes, and I mailed it to Outfront because they were willing to close deck it and build me this engine. So
sure.
I didn't.
No, I want to throw this out here. I don't. In no way do I want this to even be a slam on. Outfront is kind of in the forefront of doing H6 stuff in this country, okay? Mm-hmm. And so whatever's about to come out of this, I don't want anybody to think this is anything against them. It's not, okay?
No. Also, in their defense and IAG's defense, I did hit up IAG at the time, and they told me to go to Outfront.
Yeah, we don't do H6 stuff here. It's just not what we do. And they've done a bunch of it. Now, I want to throw this out here, caveat. They do a bunch of this stuff for one, psychopaths, which they thought you were, or two, guys doing these as sand rails, okay, mm-hmm. who are running standalone engine management and have all the room in the world, and like they're not dealing with a lot of this shit, but they're willing to play with this. So if you ever decide you want to go down that route, by all means, hit up Outfront. But this isn't none of this is in any way Outfront's fault, okay? This is so okay. Continue on, because that's not what this is.
So I mailed all these parts to Outfront, and obviously, with using a weird and unique engine where you don't have off-the-shelf parts, for the most part, there are parts from EJs that will transfer over to these engines. The connecting rods are EJ connecting rods.
That's essentially an EJ22 with an extra 2 cylinders.
That's exactly what it is, and So, I mean, a lot of the stuff from EJs is transferable. The stuff that's not are the pistons. We had to get those custom made by CP, and those took forever. I mean, like 7 months forever. And this was during COVID, so everyone was already backed up anyways. So we ended up waiting. It was like 7-8 months waiting for the pistons. They get the pistons. They get everything done. I had Delta make me a set of custom camshafts because at the time, there wasn't anyone making off-the-shelf camshafts for this engine. So I took a set of stock cams, took them over to Delta. They reground stock cams into 280s, mailed them to Outfront. And then eventually, I got the engine back. I put it together.
Now,
and
are
then,
you willing to tell me how much these fancy CP pistons and fancy, not off the shelf Delta camshafts cost? No, you don't even have to. How much more than your typical off the shelf, percentage wise, off the shelf, say like GSC cam would it have been for like an EJ?
Honestly, cheaper. So I mean, I don't mind. I don't mind sharing it. What I paid to have these reground, it was $25 or $35 per lobe on the camshaft.
That's not bad at all. That's impressive. Okay, I ain't even mad about that. And then what about the pistons?
The pistons, I think, were $1,400.
That's not bad. You figure you got 2 extra pistons.
Yeah.
I honestly, that ain't bad.
true.
You pay about $1,000 for a good set of EJ pistons now. That's about right. Okay.
Yeah. So we had the custom piston made, all that fun stuff. Got it back. Got the engine, but this was my first time putting together an EG33 as well. So I had the SVX FSM printed out with me when I was putting this engine together. So I had all the documentation when doing it. And if you have the documentation, you've never put an engine together before, it's really not too bad as long as you follow the steps. That's why they have the FSMs. So I put it together for my first time. Got the engine in the car. Then that's when I realized how tight on space I was actually going to be.
And was there like, you ever see the memes where somebody's like doing something, they're all happy and then their face goes black? You know, like, was it one of those like the color just drained out of your face and you realize, holy shit, there's no room for anything?
I mean, it was definitely a lot tighter than I anticipated. But I mean, I knew I was in high hopes. I was excited the engine was in. I was like, we'll figure something out. But I was like, it's a lot tighter than I thought. And at the end of the day, after we got everything made and built, it was. I'll tell you about that in a little bit. So once the engine was in and everything, then it went to fab. And this is where and this is why this project took so long, is because a lot of it was during COVID. So the pistons took 7-8 months just to get.
Well, it's out of your hands.
It's out of my hands at that point. So there's not much I can do. But the other thing that kind of screwed me was the fab time. I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus, but
it takes a long time.
No, it didn't. That was the problem. The issue I had was I paid this fabricator up front, and he told me he would have it done in X amount of time, which was 2 months. And then that 2 months turned into 9 months, and I took the car back before it was ever finished.
Okay.
Because it just kept getting pushed out. I mean, it happens. It was a lesson learned.
It happens. It sucks, but ouch.
Yeah. It was a lesson learned from. That's why I bought a welder, and I've been teaching myself how to do. Granted, I'm not the best welder out there. I'm still learning and figuring out.
Some of the best stories in this industry come from situations like you were in, where somebody just goes, "Fuck this! I'm gonna do it better."
Yeah, and I mean that's what led me to do everything in that car.
Yep.
So eventually,
Heavy Metal WRX in the chat literally just made exactly the meme I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Dude hopped on his meme maker and actually made it.
Yep.
Oh my god.
Okay. So if fabrication took a long time, which sucks, and then now it sounds like it didn't even happen.
Well, so the only stuff that I actually ended up using long-term from that fab session was the exhaust manifold collectors, and that was it. Everything else got refabbed by different fabricators because I was just not happy with like fitment, looks, serviceability. That's a big thing that has to go into fab that not a lot of people like think through is serviceability of the items, like V-bands in specific spots or like Vangent clamps, things like that.
You got to be able to work on it.
Yeah, which it was lacking the first time I went through, and I'm wet behind the ears at this point. I still don't know, so I'm going through and learning all this stuff as I'm going. And that's kind of the poopy thing about doing it on YouTube. Like, I don't mind sharing my failures on YouTube because it helps other people avoid those failures, but you get so much criticism from other people who have done this before.
I hate that. I hate that. You know, my personal opinion is, especially somebody who's this deep into something that you're doing, I think supporting somebody even in their failures, like, it takes a lot for you to put yourself out there like that. And I respect the living shit out of somebody who is this deep into something, and you're the whole journey is there, including the bad parts. Okay, that's
Heavy Metal WRX put a perfect point on there. That would make me so mad every time I saw those comments. The Mighty Car Mods put an H6 into their STI. It would make me so mad every time I saw those. I'm like, I'm doing this as an individual. I do not have a team.
You're
of
just
people.
a dude. Like,
Yeah.
for some reason, people think everybody on the internet is just swimming in fucking cash.
Right?
They're not. Okay. And like, I know you're a real dude. All right. I'm very aware. And I mean, let's look at another channel. I'm gonna semi-plug him real quick. Let's look at Gears and Gasoline and Ben. Like,
Mhm.
I know Ben pretty well and talk to him quite a bit.
Yeah.
He's legitimately selling that car because he cannot afford to have it. It's not like a play. This isn't some like
no, I
ploy.
get it.
He has to sell that car.
I coming from someone who does a lot of the YouTube stuff, I get it because that's why I sell a lot of the cars that but I'll build them, I'll keep them, I'll enjoy them for a while, and then I have to sell them to fund whatever I'm doing next. So I totally
You have
get
to.
where they're
You don't
coming
have that kind of money, dude.
from. Yeah.
Your name's not Adam LZ, man.
No.
You know, if you're running around with, they've got 1 million subscribers and he's still selling, but even if you're like some 10 million subscriber monster, it's still like people think there's just millions of dollars flowing into these things. They don't have that kind of money. They're like,
Right.
the only way you're going to make money in this game is starting with a whole lot of money.
Before I have no negative feelings towards them. I just want to toss that out there. They're really cool guys.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
it's just the external comments from it. I just wanted to clarify that just in case.
Yeah.
No, YouTube's just a bloodbath, man. With
No,
those
it's
comments.
evil. It's evil, and they don't understand the whole situation. Like your whole structure is drastically different from them.
Mhm.
Mighty Car Mods is structured differently, and like it's different. It's different, and that's not a slam on their content, your content, anybody's content. It's different.
Like I'm
different.
more in the realm of like DIY, do it at home, do it in your garage, do it in your own space.
Yeah, and
People like that.
People need that. Like
Yes.
I want to stress this. Like I think your content is more important to the community than almost anybody else out there because what you're doing is reality.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that. I'm a normal. That's what I tell people. I'm a normal dude, just like everyone else.
But you are like it's not even like you legitimately are just a dude. And you're again going back to this, like you'll be the first one to admit, man, I didn't know shit a few years ago. Honestly, you're literally living through the Dunning-Kruger curve on your YouTube channel, and it's lovely to see.
Yeah. I'm like I said, I'm an open book with this stuff. Like people think I'll like get, and that's the thing that bothers me so much is I believe so much in free information for everybody. I don't think it should be behind a paywall. I don't think it should be behind like subscriptions or anything like that. That's why like I will help people to the best of my knowledge and the best of my degree as much as I can because I believe that everybody should have that free information to be able to do this stuff if they want to.
By the community, for the community.
For the community.
Literally just a guy helping people out. Johnny, was that the engine I was putting together for you? It was. That was when Johnny was doing my trans and my old hatch. I had gotten this used STI 6-speed and somebody demolished the reverse gear. So Johnny was fixing the trans for me while I was putting a motor together for him.
Nice.
Pictures in the chat are
all right.
4-cylinder.
All right. So you're only using the collector from this guy. Okay.
Yeah.
So we were talking about, things people don't think about, serviceability. You got this other dude who did a bunch of other fab work to help you out. Where are we at? Okay. Where are we going from there?
So we still had the version 1 turbo kit on the car, which was behind the headlight. And this is when the car still had a full exhaust. And we get the car running. I built my first wiring harness for it, which was atrocious. It legit looked like bad spaghetti wrapped up in electrical tape and AutoZone.
Okay. We're about to hit part issue thing number 2. Okay. How much of a bitch was it having to deal with how Subaru set stuff up? Like
oh my god, dude.
Now this is the thing that people don't think about. How much easier would your swap have been if maybe you started with a bug eye?
It would have been way easier.
I know.
There's not all these other modules that you have to satisfy. So what I ended up doing to get around it was that car has ran both the factory ECU and the Haltech the entire time. So the factory ECU is there to satisfy the CAN system, and then I have a CAN bridge between the factory ECU and the Haltech, but I have the Haltech ignoring some signals from the factory ECU and only accepting some, like wheel speed and things that the Haltech needs to display onto my dash for me. But because I wanted the car to maintain all of the OEM aspects of it. So it still had power door locks, power windows, navigation, the heated seats, all of it. The steering wheel controls, all of it still worked like factory. And that was one of the things that I wanted to make sure I retained. And trying to go through there, I have spent so much time looking at Subaru's wiring diagrams for how to make some of this stuff work. I finally got it all to work, but it was like what needs to be, what does the Haltech need to see, and what does the OEM factory ECU need to see to make sure that everything is satisfied. And it was just, dude, it was literal days of just digging through these wiring diagrams, figuring out what wires go where. And it's not like the wiring, like some of the wiring diagrams from Subaru have pinouts, like the ECM that'll tell you connector B134 pin 17 is this, but that is only on some of the factory connections. When you start getting into some of the other ones on the car, they don't actually tell you what they all do, like in the gauge cluster. That was a big one that I had to try and figure out. Luckily, I was able to get an adapter, because when you delete the stock gauge cluster out of those cars, it pisses off the charging system, because that is part of the charging system to be able to satisfy the alternator, charge the battery. And if you remove that, the battery won't charge. So we had
that
to go
actually
in
goes that goes way back. The Bug Eye even has that.
Yeah, that's been a
But
thing
you
for a long
you don't
time.
realize any of that until you find out the hard way.
Yeah. And it's, dude, there was just like so many little idiosyncrasies that you had to figure out. Like the fuel level was another one, which with the fuel level in that car, I had to make my own harness for it, because I couldn't end up getting the factory. Obviously, the factory one wouldn't work anymore once I removed that gauge cluster. But it's like all these little things that add up to the wiring. If you can't get an off-the-shelf plug-and-play harness for a popular engine, or an engine that a lot of people use for a swap, especially with an engine that's 30 years old and not really supported, you have to do all this stuff on your own.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad that I used an engine,
Dude,
that
I
old and
guarantee
didn't have that support, because now I know
you've
how to do it.
learned a ton from this. You've learned a lot of good from this. Okay.
Absolute ton.
Yeah, which is awesome, but that I bet you it was
Sounds
like
painful.
as you like basically turned a page and like peeled a layer back to see how much further you had to go, and realized, holy shit, this rabbit hole is getting really deep.
Dude, the biggest mistake I had made on that car, and I was in full panic mode. Like I said, I didn't know any better at the time. I started removing and cutting up the factory harnesses. And I didn't know any better. I was like, oh, I'm not going to be using all this stuff. I started going through with a pair of diagonal cutters, cutting wires, removing things, all this stuff. It took me a month and like 5 different engine harnesses to finally find a good replacement one. And I couldn't even get the car to power back up. I don't know what finally ended up working, but I first of all, trying to find an engine harness for a 2017 limited STI is not as easy as you'd think, because it's like an in-between year from the 18 and the 16 and the normal 17, and it's got its own dedicated harness that doesn't share across any other years or any other trim level. So it's very difficult to find this harness. Found one on eBay and ended up snagging that. And then after that, it was trying to get the ECM to communicate again. I thought because the car had sat so long without having power to it, that these modules had essentially wiped themselves or lost memory, like a memory battery or the clock battery or whatever you want to call it died in them. Because I couldn't get anything to communicate. Finally, one day, I went out there and I turned the car on and I left it sitting for like 8 hours. And it finally started. I don't know what happened, but it started communicating again after letting it sit for like 8 hours. And I was ecstatic at that point.
Crazy, right?
Jeez.
Dude, that was the biggest nightmare I had gone through.
And this is the stuff people don't get, man. Like, especially modern cars. It ain't like a 90s car, especially like a 90s Honda, where like the engine harness and the chassis harness are separate. And like you can kind of separate these things out. And like everything's kind of its own thing. Like the engine has its own, like, you know, the ECU isn't needed to roll your windows up and shit. In 08 in the Impreza and in 04 in the Legacy chassis, that's when the whole CAN system really started getting integrated into those cars. And man, anything past that, you are it's fun to change shit out. Let me
Dude,
tell you.
It's doable, but it's not a fun time.
And especially like it's doable if you're going from like, let's say you're going from a 5-speed to a 6-speed, but even like an automatic to like a 6-speed, that can be rough. Okay, but you're going a totally different animal here. You're going from a 4-cylinder to a 6-cylinder, that's using completely different cam sensors and pickups, 2 extra fucking cylinders. Like, it's a completely different damn animal.
And a street car. So it's not like you can strip out all the things that you don't really want to program.
Right? Because I saw the lights, side beams, blinkers. The only sacrifice I made on that car was air conditioning, and that's just because there's no room for it. But it had everything else.
Yeah. So
what a nightmare.
Wait, you've got the Haltech piggybacked on your stock ECU, which is the only way you're ever going to make that work. Yeah. And you finally get this thing to like run and function in some way. What other stuff did you run into before you're like, okay, this thing's like running? Anything else just pop out?
I had to figure out how to make a base map for it to start it. So I went on, and I've worked with HPA in the past, so I have all of the HPA classes. So I logged in and I watched like all the fundamentals of tuning classes, and I built my first base map ever for a car to get it going. And then I had Josh look it over. He made a couple small changes here and there. We uploaded it on, and it finally fired up. The mistakes that we were having that was preventing it from starting was I had one of the coil packs wired in wrong. So I had 12 volts going to the signal, so it caused one of the coil packs to catch on fire. That was a fun one. And then the other issue that I ran into was top dead offset for timing. So I had to find the top dead offset angle, and I didn't even know that was a thing at the time when I was doing this. So watched a couple videos on it. I went out to Harbor Freight, bought a timing light, and we got our TDC offset set in the ECM. We locked it at 0 degrees, so that way it would fire at 0. Figured out our offset, got that inputted into the ECM, and then made the changes, saved everything, finally got it started up at that point. And it was the most glorious moment I have felt when building a car, because it's like the accumulation of so much stuff finally comes together, and it's just
when
like,
that thing finally fired and ran, I bet you damn near cried.
Dude, I was like out of breath on the ground.
How could you be?
Right? I was stoked. I was like, oh my God, it works.
Well,
I was like,
okay, you went right down you thought this was all gonna bolt up and everything was gonna work, and you are way past the fact that this is the deep end, but you're in too deep to turn around now. When that thing finally fired and ran, and like you're on the like that feeling, that's got to be pretty much incomparable. Like I can't even imagine you did that on your own steam. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong, you had help and you could ask people questions or whatever, but like you're the driving force behind making that work, dude.
Yeah, the thing that
hats off to getting that done, and I don't think anybody realizes how insane that was. When I finally saw that car running on your channel, I'm like, wow. I was astounded. I was absolutely astounded. It was not something I'd ever try to take on. So it impressed to no end.
I was bewildered by it, but it also makes me sad at the same time, because I don't think I'll ever feel that way again when building a car, unless I do something that's even crazier or wilder than that. So, I mean, I'm really excited, and I was so hyped at the time, but looking back on it now, it makes me kind of sad, because I don't think I'll ever get that sense of excitement out of a swap again, because that was my first time doing it.
That's true, but man, you went through hell. So like, it's a painful.
That's not even you did that's not an easy swap. That is honestly, you would have had the same amount of effort putting an LS in the car. It's the reality of it. In fact, you probably would have had more documentation with cramming an LS in there.
Yeah. Wow.
And like that's like it's unreal that these cars are or those engines are so similar in so many ways, but how they couldn't be any further apart.
That's true. So we finally had it running, and then this is where the nightmare starts.
He's right now he's on peak. He's like, fuck man, we made it.
At this point, I think everything's golden. And I
Yep.
think it's just going to
Okay.
stay that way. Little did I know. So
I'm
we,
gonna throw this out here. My boy Filippo was in here, and I'm so happy he's here to hear this.
is he going through this right now?
He
He
knows.
knows. He's done some big projects too.
He's
and
done
it's-
some
Hey.
shit.
Yeah.
So
That's where it's at. So we trailer the car out to Spokane. And we get it up on Josh's dyno, and this is like where problems begin. There was a lingering issue that I didn't know about at the time that would plague me for a year to come, and it would have random sync loss issues between the cam and the crank. We'll circle back to that once I found the fix to it, but we got the car in the dyno. We got a couple
super
runs out of
interested
it.
to hear what you guys found for a fix for that too, because we may talk
we
when
did
we're
find
not
a fix.
recording about that.
So the car goes on the dyno, does a couple like tuning adjustments, changes. We start to do one lean into it, and the car breaks the camshaft.
What?
Breaks a camshaft on the
Oh,
first go, and it didn't just break a
Oh.
camshaft like you'd expect to break a camshaft. It was fixable, and I got it fixed. But what had happened is the dowel pin on the front of the camshaft broke, and it's like a single overhead cam engine. It's dual overhead cam, but the cam gears are like single overhead cams where there's just a locking or like a dowel pin on that to set the cam position, and that dowel pin broke. So it was freaking out. So we tow it back to the house. I got to pull the engine back out again, find that the cam gear bolts had come loose. So at this point, I've ordered Nord locks for them, put Nord locks on there, and it never ended up coming loose again. But I had to buy an entire second engine at this point because I couldn't find anywhere that had a set of exhaust cams. So I had to buy a whole second engine,
Oh my
tear it
gosh.
down, get the exhaust
Oh
cams
my
out, take them
God.
back to Delta, get another set of Delta cams made, take the heads back to
Oh.
the machine shop to make sure the lash was going to be set properly on
Oh,
the heads again,
gosh.
get them back, get the engine back in the car, and then continue to dial out all these little issues that I was finding going through it. So that one was
this makes me sick hearing this.
dude. It only gets worse, Dewey.
Again, it gets worse. So
It gets worse. So
Yeah.
So got it
Oh.
fixed. Well, we're still fighting with sync loss issues and this random stuff here and there. So we get the car dialed in a little bit more, get couple other changes. This is when I swapped the turbo kit from a full exhaust over to a fender exit because the car was ungodly loud, and it was a full 4-inch exhaust from the turbo all the way to the back of the car.
Well, I mean, you
And
got to do
car-
grown ass man shit.
Yeah,
Right.
but the problem is it was too loud. I couldn't fit resonators or mufflers in there well. It would hit the drive shaft. So that's when I was like, all right, we're going out the fender with this thing. So that way it'll quiet, because the turbo obviously acts as a muffler when you have a shorter exhaust like that.
Sure.
It's not going to amplify the exhaust. So it was
Mhm.
indeed a lot quieter. And the people that have heard that car in real life, or I guess in reality, they'll attest, like after the car calms down from a cold start, it wasn't that loud. Like it may have sounded loud in videos, but in person at idle, it wasn't too bad. So we have the fender exit now. We go back to the dyno. All the little issues that we had are worked out. And car's doing great. It's doing good. Doing solid all day. We ran into some sync loss problems again, but we were playing with filtering levels in the ECU to try to clean that up a bit. We got it cleaned up to the point where the car was cooperating, and we're doing hit after hit after hit. The car had a 6870 on it at the time, and ID 1300s, and a smaller set of fuel pumps. There were 525s on there. And we capped, and it had a smaller fuel pressure regulator. So we capped the fuel system before anything else, and the car, I think, capped at like 700 and something horsepower on the Mustang dyno. So that's when
Which is not a small amount of power.
No,
And-
that's not a small amount of power at all.
And not only that, was a really fat power band. That looked really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, it was solid. And it's like we finished tuning at like 2 a.m. right now.
Also, understand this car doesn't even have variable valve timing. Okay,
Yeah.
so that was just the big old fat natural amount of power.
Yeah, this is just what the engine's making with
Yeah.
boost. That was E85 also, not pump gas.
So were you starting to get stoked again?
Yeah, I was hyped. I was like, hell yeah. I was like, we capped the fuel system. I was like, Josh, let's go out and do a hit. And it's like 2 a.m. right now, and it is dark. And Josh and I get in the car, and we're driving away. Everything's fine. We have oil pressure. We have all this stuff. The car checks out solid. And we get out to this back road, and I do one hit on it, and the car just shuts off. It just dies on us. Try to turn it back on, try to start it again, wouldn't start. So we have our buddies bring the trailer out. We load the car back up in the trailer. We took it back to the house. The next day, I started going back through it, and I was trying to, in my mind, this is before I've torn the car back apart. In my mind, I'm trying to figure out what's going on because at the time we still had a stock oil pickup, stock oil pump, or not stock oil pump, stock oil pickup, stock oil pan, all that stuff. So I was like, maybe we broke the pickup tube because just like EJ's in the early 90s when those were made, they were brazed on, and that car has a lot of engine vibration. It didn't have solid mounts, but it had key and swap mounts, and the durometer of those bushings were pretty stiff.
Yeah.
So get the car back in the garage, get the engine out, start tearing it apart. And as I'm starting to take off, I take the clutch off and I get down to the flywheel and I go to break the flywheel bolts loose. I have my buddy on the other end of the engine holding the crank, and all of the flywheel bolts were hand tight. They were all loose. They were all loose. So I start pulling them out. I'm like, no. So as I'm going through there, and there's red Loctite on these. There's red Loctite on all of these bolts as I'm pulling them out. I'm like, what is going on? Pull off the flywheel, look at the back of the flywheel, and it's like an ACT mod twin. Look at the back of the flywheel's marred up, the crankshaft's marred up. I was like, oh no. Start tearing apart the engine more, get the timing off. I get to the oil pump. I pull the oil pump apart and it's shattered. The oil pump is in like 12 pieces.
I was so invested in this story and that just hurt.
Engine completely starved of oil. 4 pistons and 4 rods were salvageable. The left-hand head was destroyed. Crankshaft was destroyed. The cases were destroyed. So at this point, I'm like, dude, I don't even know what to do. So I called Jeremy down out front. I'm like, dude, this happened. And, you know, at that point, it was like a day of me being sad. I was like, all right, we're going to get right back to it. I had this spare engine ready to go. I send that spare engine back down to out front. We're playing the waiting game again for another engine to come back. He saves what he can save. We reuse what we can reuse. I sent him a new crank, a new head, all that stuff. He reports the head, rebuilds the head. I get this other engine back. And this was like March of last year at this point. And I'm hyped at this point. I'm like, all right, cool. I got all my 6-cylinder stuff back. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to start making some power again, get this thing turned up. And at this point, I'm like, we are running ID 2600s now, Exity triple disc, bigger fuel pressure regulator. We jumped up from the 6870 to a 7675. And dude, I made every improvement I could logically think of to make this car better. Within reason. Like, we'll get to that stuff later, but within reason, because like we know, I'm a normal dude. I don't have exorbitant amount of money to continue tossing at stuff. So I get this engine back, and the thing with EGs, they're not like EJs with head stud stuff, and we cut apart an EG after this. So it had 1/2-inch head studs. I start putting in the head studs, and like in EJ, you only go hand tight on the stud end of the block. You lube it with 5W30 oil, not a ton. You just get a light coat on there, so obviously it's going to thread in nicely, not where it's dripping off and it's going to pocket up at the bottom and create a pressure zone. So I get these head studs hand threaded in. I get the heads on. I put the entire engine together. I get the engine in the car. I get all the accessories bolted onto it, and then I go to put water into it for the first start. And as soon as I put water in, it starts coming out of the bottom of the engine, and it's coming out behind the engine mount. So I'm like, there's literally, I grab my spare engine. I'm like, dude, there's nowhere on this engine for coolant or water to come out of. It doesn't make sense. So I pull up the engine a little bit with my hoist. I take off the motor mount. I look behind it, and I can see a hairline crack on the bottom of the motor where the head stud goes in, and it cracked the block because we went up in torque value on the head studs. Now, in Outfront's defense, they give you a paper that says this is uncharted territory with head stud torque value on these engines. I had found that territory. We went to 140 foot-pound, because with EGs you have 2 different sets of torque values you go to on the cylinder heads. You have the outer 4, which are smaller studs, because the way that the cams work is they have internal cam gears. It's a dual overhead engine. The cam gears interlock inside of the head, and then you have one external cam gear. So you have to have these shorter studs so that way they clear the cams. So on the outermost ones, we did 130 foot-pounds, and then on the inner ones, it was like 140 or 150, somewhere in that range.
Now, before anybody gets like grumpy about this, I want to make sure I throw this out here too. The EG33 never came from the factory with a turbocharger, and it was designed to make 220 wheel horsepower. I think they were rated at what, 250?
I think so. And they were naturally operated with an automatic behind them.
With an automatic behind it. You could, in Japan, you could get it with the manual, but the engine was never designed to be doing 700 plus to the
Right.
wheels. Okay, just making sure I'm throwing that out there.
Big torque,
Okay.
let alone big head start torque. Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Okay, continuing on.
So after cracking this block, I call down out front, and I obviously I send them this block back so they can see what went wrong, as most machine shops would do. They're like, all right, we want to know what failed. So we cut this EG33 in half. Come to find, I've got pictures of it on, I think, Instagram and on my community page on YouTube. We cut an EG in half, and we cut an EJ in half to see how much material difference there was between the head stud and the exterior of the block. And on the EG, it's significantly less than an EJ. It is wildly less how much more meat there is between where the head stud is and where the block ends. On an EJ, I think it's about 2 to 3 times the amount of material in
So
between.
is there a way that, and I never got to see these, and I know this is going to sound wild, but could you even add material?
We looked into doing that.
Yeah.
You can add material to the inside of the block at the bottom of the cylinder liners, but the problem is the outside of the block, because the head stud comes so close up to the exterior or the top side of the engine. That's where it was cracking. So we found hairline cracks on the bottom where it was leaking coolant. Oil and water were mixing as well, because there were other interior cracks inside of the block that we couldn't see until we cut it in half. And then it had 4 cracks on the top side of the block if you're looking at it from the top down. And then all of the closed deck inserts on the left-hand side of the engine started popping out, and the deck surface wasn't flat anymore.
I mean, what were you
my
going to, if that's, and again, this is nothing against out front or anything like that. No. If the block is literally like splitting open, like there's nothing to hold that there. Well, right. I mean, what are you going to do?
So we sent that one back. They tore it down. We swapped all the internals from that engine into another closed deck engine. So I totally spaced. The very first EG I got, by the way, I had to send back because FedEx destroyed it in shipping. So at this point, I'm on my 4th EG33.
Dude, this is great content, but holy cow,
told you, this
what
sucks.
A nightmare.
I'm telling you, there has never been a better person for exactly the conversation we're trying to have than this man right here.
There's been little other issues that I've left out, but at this point, I'm on my 4th or 5th engine. So I get this one back from out front again, and we dial back the torque value on the studs. We go to, I think it's 130 on the interior studs and 110 on the exterior 4.
Yep.
And get the engine put back together, get it dropped back in the car, and fires right up first try. I've got the video of me putting it together, and it's literally on the first attempt at starting this thing, it fires up beautifully, and I'm stoked. I am absolutely excited. I go out, I drive it around my little shop complex for a little while, bring it back in, and then that's when trigger issues start again. And it was the worst round of trigger sync loss issues I have ever had. I couldn't get the car to idle without it. So I'm going through, I'm looking at the waveforms on oh my god, I want to say borescope. It's not called a borescope. What
oscilloscope?
Is it? Oscilloscope. Thank you. So I have my oscilloscope pulled up on the Haltech so I can look at waveforms of the crank and the cam position to see what's going wrong, and it's the crank. So I tried different sensors, I tried different things, and with the EG33s, they have from the factory. So I'm using an EJ25 oil pump on this engine. Factory, the EG33s come with a 12 millimeter pump, but it's not the same as an EJ pump. It has 2 crank position sensors from the factory. I'm using a single crank position sensor. So, and on the trigger wheel, there are 2 sets of teeth on this trigger wheel. There's a rear set and then a front set with 12 teeth. And running these on a standalone, you have to use the front 12 teeth in order to get it to communicate with the ECU properly. So I'm reading all of my crank trigger settings off the front teeth, and what's happening is I have this little adapter plate that I'm using on this crank sprocket, and this is a factory crank sprocket. The first one that I had, we cut and welded and extended the teeth back, but the waveforms were never truly accurate to where they should be. If you're looking at an oscilloscope, some would be longer, some would be shorter, and it wasn't an accurate representation of what the ECU should be seeing for data. So we were using this little adapter bracket to offset the crank position sensor to only read the front teeth, but it would vibrate so much, it would rotate the sensor, even with like Loctite and a little baby Nordlock on there, it would still rotate a little bit. Like the bolt wouldn't come loose, but the actual bracket would rotate, and it would pick up the rear teeth on the crank sprocket as well. So instead of knocking off the rear teeth on the crank sprocket. There's a company up in Canada, really cool shop called Nemesis Performance, and they made me a 32-1 custom setup. So I had this billet aluminum with steel plate crank sprocket made, and I swapped over to a Halifax sensor. And for the most part, all of those issues went away, with the exception on cold starts. On cold starts, even with this new sensor setup, it would still throw these trigger codes only on cranking, and it would do it 3 to 4 times before the car would fire up. I'd clear the code and it would not come back up until I went to cold start the car again.
Super
And
weird.
I never got rid of that. I could never figure out why it would do that. I tried giving the Halifax sensor its own harness.
I don't want this to be a bash on Heltec at all either, but I'm not gonna lie. We on Boogie, because I ran 2500 Elite for years, we always had some really strange cam pickup things. It would throw a code and do some weird shit at like crazy times. Times it didn't matter. It would never it never correlate correctly, or like I could never make it happen. You know, it would just happen.
You're not the first I've heard to say that with EJs. I've heard a lot of people say that with EJs on Halifax.
I don't know why. I don't know what and the thing is, like, they're flawless on other things. It's just on EJ, I don't know what's going on. Something funny. Johnny Trans was saying EM interference. Maybe.
Dude, with my setup, that's what I thought also. I took my harness apart, I wrapped it in aluminum foil, and I re-shielded it and made extra grounds for it to keep EM.
We did the same thing
there.
Wow.
And it didn't matter. It didn't matter. Don't think it was electromagnetic interference though on that stuff. I don't know if it's a software thing or if it's a code thing or what it might be. The foil harness guy, bro, that harness was dual shield. It was a dual shielded wire. The actual raw wire was a shielded wire, and then I shielded the harness also, and it did not matter for that.
Oh my gosh. We're talking about problems from single bolts and problems that make no sense whatsoever.
No, and that's you know, it's kind of what happens when you ask an engine that was never even remotely designed to make the amount of horsepower you've made, make that with no aftermarket support whatsoever.
Yeah, so I mean, going through this, and don't get me wrong, there are other EG33 guys out there in the world.
Sure.
This is what I don't understand, is the community for EG33 users is so small. And there's been people I have worked with in the EG33 community that are fantastic. They're willing to share information, bounce ideas off each other, and that kind of stuff, and like work through problems together. And then there's that other subset group that gatekeeps. And I'm like, I don't understand why you're gatekeeping when the community for these engines is already so small and it's a dying platform. Like, as much as I hate to say it, and I love the EG33 as a platform, it is a dying engine and it is a dying platform.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know
for the community. And I am totally with you. I don't understand that. You know what I mean?
I just don't get it. I'm like, because if any other EG guys would ask me anything, I would share what I've learned with them, so that way they can go for success. Because I don't want to see anyone fail. It sucks. I mean, you learn from the failures, but it obviously sucks at the same time.
Yeah.
Those people that are gatekeeping, I'm convinced, don't actually know that much, because there's not some single person out there that has solved all of these problems. Even with the full force of the community, there are still a lot of problems that we have to solve.
I have a theory that some of these people who've gatekept, though, have actually had some fairly decent success with said engine. I'm not going to mention any names, but I have a feeling I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple. Not most of none of them are in the United States.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. I truly think our community is a little different too.
Yeah.
The only time we got
Australia, awesome. Australia, New Zealand guys were awesome to work with. I got my buddy Kevin Brown down there. He has a EG33 05 STI.
Yeah, the Aussies.
He's another big guy. He has an 8085 on his EG33, and it's built to the brim. Also,
I will say it tends to be maybe a European mindset, and I don't understand why. And I'm just gonna say this now for all you Canadian folks. You act very European.
Not everybody. I mean, most of the provinces are great. There's just one renegade province that,
maybe, I don't know. You know the when we got gate kept because we just wanted to have some conversations with somebody and they came from America's hat. Okay.
I know where they came from, but like, Canada is a big place. Canada is huge. So
Canada land-wise is huge. Canada population-wise
culturally
is not.
Canada is huge too, culturally. Oh my god, I don't want to hear it. God,
Right.
Canada's like 4 different countries. Let's be real. That
Okay.
are that's kept together by one
Either way,
common currency
they-
and a love of maple
It's held
syrup.
together with maple syrup.
Yeah, no, they I think these guys were from the eastern coast. You know, we have our
Yeah.
problems with East Coast people here in the United States too. So, like,
yeah.
yeah, let's.
That's
That
true
doesn't
also.
surprise me. But I still remember that. That was years ago. I'm still mad about it.
I'm still mad about it too, but I again going back to what he's saying, you know, I
So-
get it,
so-
and I don't understand why you would gatekeep something like that.
Dude, I never understood it. So at this
Yep.
point, car's running good, no problems. I've been driving it around. I have a couple hundred miles on the engine at this point. We set up the dyno day. Josh flies in. We get the car up on the dyno, and it does phenomenal. It literally does the best I've ever seen this car do on the dyno. And
What it made?
that's the thing we don't know on this run because the dyno wasn't reading. So Josh sold his dyno to my buddies over at Force Induction Motorsports, and they
Sure.
moved his Mustang across the mountains, and something went wrong in the calibration process, and the dyno wasn't reading right. So at the time, it said the car made like 400 horsepower. We know it wasn't doing that. We tossed on multiple other cars at the time to verify and see what was going on. I had my 23 WRX that I had on the time on there, and it said it made like 160 horsepower, something like that. So we tuned it so the car was running good, but we weren't shooting for like power on that one because we couldn't get an accurate representation of what the graph looked like, and we didn't know where it was at for actual power. So we stopped there. We kept it like that for a little while. I drove it around. Josh flew back in once the dyno was working again. We got the car back on, and this is when we were starting to make power. So car was doing phenomenal every single dyno session, or every single dyno run on this one. No problems at all. No check engine lights, no sync loss, nothing. Car made 980 and like 800 foot-pounds of torque. So it made a lot
Wow.
of power. And the problem we were running into at this time is we couldn't get the car to stop making power. So we ended up revving this thing out to 9,500 RPM because it wouldn't lay over at all. It just kept going up on the
Wow.
graph, and it would not lay over.
Yeah,
Eventually-
boy.
Big dog
Eventually-
problems.
Right? Eventually, we got the car to lay over, and we don't know if it laid over due to the engine not being at its efficiency range anymore, or if it laid over because the exhaust manifold collapsed. So the downside to using an Elite 2500 or a standalone sometimes is, especially if you're going into one your first time, is you have to understand how many AVIs and DPOs you need to have the amount of sensors that you want and need for that car. So I was lacking coolant pressure, EMAP, EGT, all of these other sensors I would have liked to run on that car that I just didn't have the available outputs and inputs to be able to have them on there. So I have a feeling EMAP got very high because we're at like 47 PSI on a 7675 keep in mind, we're on MLS head gaskets at this time also. Because when I was putting this together, there was no other gasket option. So we're at MLS head gaskets, 47 PSI, this thing's screaming. It finally lays over, but when it lays over is when the exhaust manifold collapsed. So I have bellows in the exhaust manifold because the turbo's hard mounted to the frame. So we have to have some flex between the engine and the turbo, obviously, because there's nowhere to put this turbo on the actual engine. So we have one bellow in each of the runners going to the turbo. The driver side runner collapses, and that's where we call it. The car made like 980, 800 at that point. We pull it off the dyno. I drive it home after that from the dyno. I mean, it drove home fine. I stayed out of boost, obviously, so that way nothing negative would happen to the car. Drive it home, doing fine. I get the exhaust manifold fixed, and I take it out I finally get it out to my first track event. The first one I've ever actually gotten the car out to, and it was doing some drag racing and roll racing for funsies.
This was when you're out. It was like a you could do like roll race or whatever.
Yeah.
Is it like an airfield or something?
Yeah, it's an old airfield.
Yeah. Okay.
So we get out there, and I somehow, my first race of the day, I got paired up with an H2, a bike, a 1 liter bike.
Yeah.
And
so
I want
a
to
leader bike right out of the gate. Great.
I want to preface this. I won this race, by the way.
My guy.
So,
My guy.
Good.
With 980 foot-pounds of torque, you fucking better him.
So I go out there,
Or
I get up on the
800.
line, I do a burnout to heat up the tires because I don't have proper slicks on at this time. I have my street tires on, street wheels. And so they were R888Rs, which I'm not even going to get into that. I'm not a huge fan of those tires.
We don't have to talk
I
about
do a
that.
burnout, I get the tires heated up a little bit, and I hit it hard on the launch control. And I think is where things went wrong. I hit it hard on the launch control, car starts pushing coolant. I did the run anyways. Car never overheated. Never overheated once. I came back, I let it cool down, and I continued to do passes throughout the day. I did another 10 to 11 passes. I just wasn't as hard on the car as that
Things you
first
do with a
pass was.
Subaru, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So After we got done racing, I drove it home, and the car, like I said, the car never overheated. It stayed within its temperature range. I had that car running between 179 and 191 degrees consistently. Drove it home, drove it over to my shop, and obviously I knew I had lifted the head at that point because the head gaskets were blown out. It wasn't pushing coolant into the exhaust. It wasn't mixing oil and coolant. It was just pushing coolant out of the engine whenever I'd get into boost. So start tearing it back down, and at this point I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna fix it, get it back in the car, and I'm gonna turn it down at this point. I dropped the heads off at the machine shop to get redecked and just gone through, and this is where I pulled the plug on this engine, because I've had every engine, I get sub like 1,000 miles out of these engines, and it's so ungodly expensive to rebuild them. The machine shop calls me and they say, you warped 22 of the valves and you bent 2 of them. And at this point I said, don't do anything to those heads, I'm changing to a different engine.
Wait a minute. How do you bend valves? I thought the EG33 was a non-interference motor.
Yeah, valve float.
It was
Oh,
floated.
Which is why I have,
gosh.
because I have dual valve springs in that engine, and it still floated the valves.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Those are some big dog problems. This is incredible content, but my God, this is like
Yes.
like I
nightmare.
said, I absolutely love this engine, and the engine's capable of so much, but when I'm getting less than 1,000 miles out of each engine, I just want, like, this, the whole point of this car for me is to take it to the track and have fun with, and I've been able to do that once in 3 years.
And you paid the price to do it.
Yeah, and it's like at this point I'm swapping to something else. Johnny mentioned back pressure from the 7675. I agree. I mean, a 7685 would be better. We could have ran less boost and the same power, but like I said, I don't have an extra $5,000 sitting around to buy a 7685.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I get it, man. And at a certain point, I understand having to tap out. Take it from somebody who's been trying to make something work for how many years? It took me forever to make it even remotely function.
The other problem that I've consistently had with the engine is oil pressure. Anytime I'd go above 7,000 RPM, oil pressure would plummet from 95 PSI down to 40. And I've tried.
What the fuck are you doing up at 9K then?
We're
You're like,
you act like you've never done that before. You had to
You
turn the springs up.
Give me that.
You had to turn the springs up on your dry sump to get enough pressure at 10,000 RPM. I don't want to hear it.
That's the solution for the problem, is a dry sump. And they make a dry sump for the EV33. Daily Engineering makes it. But for dry sump conversion on that car with fab work, you're looking at 10 to 12,000.
I know.
Just for that. And then plus to swap over to a turbo that would be more efficient on that car, I'm looking at another 5,000 to fix the fuel system, because we capped out the 2 535 pumps I had to go to an external pump. I'm looking at it with the fuel system requirements needed to get it set up. I'm looking at another 7,000, and it's like, dude, it's like, I'm like, I have to. Huh?
Could you just run a surge tank, just a lift pump out to a?
There were probably other options. We could have had a conversation about that.
That's just a small cut, because I was looking at doing a surge tank to an external Aeromotive 5.0 pump that would be controlled by the Haltech.
Yeah. Fuel Lab makes some great shit too. You should see some of their new brushless shit. It's insane.
Regardless, it's the total cost perspective of it all.
But then the conversation what he just said is another $3,000. You know what I mean? Yeah. On top of the other 12 grand he's going to need for the dry sump. On top of the other, we got to redo these heads for how much money? On top of the
multiplicative effect.
And then he needs another heap of money for a different turbo, because let's be real, it's probably the cause of what fucked his heads in the first place. So realistically, on the low side, it would have been another $30K for him to get this thing fucking
God bless America.
You know what makes me mad about that turbo though? I bought that 7675, and then a month later, Precision came out with the 7685.
Well, yeah, that's how that works.
I was like, are you kidding me?
That's what Mike Lewin likes to do to me over at Pro Awesome. It's his favorite thing to do. I buy a whole fucking thing, build an entire splitter setup around it, spend a shitload of hours. I'm all stoked about it. I show it off. Next fucking day, and he's done this to me like 3 times, he releases a bunch of shit that would have made my life easier, better, and more awesome in every way.
It's
professional awesome, not professional Dewey helpers. They're just awesome on their own time.
They do what they want to do.
Right.
My guys, so let's talk about the moral of this story, okay? So right now, from the sounds of it, you're finally saying at a certain point you gotta, enough is enough. I need to enjoy this car.
I've already been selling EG parts to SVX owners and other EG enthusiasts.
Yeah, so okay, so she done. Okay,
Right.
so
The EG is flatlined. It is not going back.
knowing what you know now, because now you're on the complete other side of the Dunning-Kruger curve. You have fallen off of the peak of Mount Stupid all the way into the pit of despair, and you are probably 3/4 of the way up the slope of enlightenment.
Big
right?
waves.
Big waves. Okay, so you're hanging out of the slope of enlightenment, and if you can give anybody some advice that's climbing up the peak of to the peak of Mount Stupid right now, okay, they have these big ideas. What if you can give them any bit of advice? What would that bit of advice be?
Dude, research. First of all, when it comes to doing an engine swap, know what you want out of it. After you've figured out what you want out of it, you then need to pick a platform. If this is big, if you are swapping, if you can make realistic power goals and you know what you want out of the factory engine that came in the car, stick with it. It does not always pay off to be different. Like, it's cool and the car stood out, and don't get me wrong, it probably did help my YouTube channel grow to an extent.
Oh, sure.
But the flip side to that is it gets ungodly expensive to do a lot of this custom stuff. Like, just in the swap that I have in that car, I'm probably 80 to 100,000, and that's over the course of like 4 years, and that is me spending like my entire monthly budget on this car every single month to get it to that point. So if you're going into the swap route, you have to understand like what you want out of the car. If you're going with a different engine setup, you need to, the biggest things I can stress, you need to make sure that engine has OEM factory support still. The EG became more and more difficult as time went on. Thankfully, I had a stash of OEM Subaru EG33 parts that I bought before they started discontinuing more and more stuff, like water pumps, timing stuff, all this stuff. But you go to buy that stuff now, like water pumps are discontinued, they're discontinuing more and more and more, and it makes it way more difficult. So you need to understand that if you go into a swap, that engine that you choose needs to have either OEM support or strong aftermarket OE replacement support. After that, I would heavily suggest looking into not OEM, but like aftermarket product support for that engine as well. Because obviously there are some off-the-shelf stuff you can buy for EG33s, but 99% of it's all custom.
Yeah,
and it's just
you're not getting a turbo manifold.
No, you're not buying an off-the-shelf manifold for this thing.
Yeah.
Like, everything's gonna have to be custom made at that point if you're going into the realm of like these obscure, weird engines that not a lot of people are using.
Yep.
And it's so you have to look at overall support of the platform that you're trying to swap to.
If you were to have done it again, would you have maybe tried to talk to more people before you went down this road?
Knowing me, probably not.
I'm just saying, like, you talking to yourself, like you find a time machine and go back and you go, look, you need to talk to a couple of more people and realize that this isn't what you think it is. More than likely, you wouldn't have been able to talk yourself out of this.
Yeah,
but you might have at least put yourself in a better direction.
If I could go back and tell like older me, I would smack myself, say don't use the EG33. It's a cool engine, but use an EZ30R because it has way more support.
Yep.
Or some other engine. I'm like, if you're going to do this, use an engine that actually has more support than the one that you're trying to get into right now. But I mean, the flip side of that is also I wouldn't have learned as much as I learned. So now I can make really cool engine harnesses out of Tefzel wiring because I went through the HPA stuff, and I can make dude, I was so proud of that engine harness, the version 2 engine harness I made, dude. I've got like the drywall breakaway connectors into the firewall of the ECU and all this stuff.
Should be proud about that. That's great.
It was cool. Now I can make
these are
chill.
skills, that you're going to be able to take on. Honestly, a really good example of somebody who's done something very similar to you and now has really turned it into something is Rob Dom. Rob Dom knew fuck nothing, and he'll be the first to tell you.
Bro, coming from an RX-7 rotary owner, when I go and I have to try to figure something out, I have to like stumble across old Rob Dom videos, and he's like, I don't know what this does, but we're gonna unplug it and figure it out. And it's like, I feel it, dude. I feel it. And now, like, he kept, trying to pay people to help him out and do all these things. Now he basically makes everything himself. And he had to teach himself how to do all of that. And what I would love to see from you is you turn into the Rob Dom of Subarus. Okay? Oh, because you're not going to like where I'm going with stuff then.
What's that?
Here we go.
You're not going to like where I'm going with the Subaru then.
What? So let's talk about that. What's the plan?
So obviously a different engine. So from my point of view, I feel like anything going backwards from the 6-cylinder, going back to an EJ or an FA is a step backwards for me. And with that car specifically, like I want that car to be my fun. I can beat the hell out of it, take it to the track, enjoy it, and play with it. So the current engine on slate is, and dude, I'm gonna make so many Subaru purists upset. I'm looking at an LS to go in it.
With all-wheel drive?
What?
No, so that's the problem with Subaru.
Okay, well, you know what? Now I'm out. And I had a feeling this was but for real, I had a feeling this was coming.
Yeah. In that car specifically, keep in mind, I still have my 2-door GM6 that will be Subaru powered.
And I'm more than happy to help you build a Subaru that makes that car fucking suck. So one of these days we'll talk about de-strokers and all sorts of cool shit, okay? Because you still have only scratched the surface. But I had a feeling that was coming. I had a feeling that was coming because you kind of have everything you need to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And literally what you just said was find something with strong aftermarket support. You know, even further back, I'm like, you could have just put an LS in it at this point.
Yeah.
Now, with that stated, I think you should do it with all-wheel drive. It's going to be a total bitch, but it can be done.
So the problem that I'm running, because I've been pulling measurements off because I would like to keep it all-wheel drive if I can, but I don't see it happening unless you're able to use like an R32 to R34 all-wheel drive system, because where the axles are in the engine bay, I could bolt an LS straight up to the STI 6-speed. They make adapter plates, but the problem is it pushes the LS or any other engine so far past the core support that the car's going to handle like ass. Like,
it already handles like ass.
What are you fucking worried about? The only thing you're going to do is go in a straight line with this damn thing.
That's not true. I take these on like the back roads one. So here's the other thing. A lot of people like don't.
I'm gonna argue with you. I'm sorry, man. If you're already going
to fight you in public.
I hate to be this dude, and I've heard this a million times. But you're gonna take a platform that was designed to be all-wheel drive. You're gonna make it rear-wheel drive, and you're gonna find the fuck out.
No, okay. Hear me out.
Okay.
We have different front and rear subframes going in the car that are going to change the actual geometry of the suspension to make that car actually handle more like a rear-wheel drive car.
We'll see.
We'll see. I'm telling you.
You know how many people have told me?
All of them. Oh my god.
I have been doing this since fucking 02, my guy. I am telling you, I've been told a few times. All right? I'll be seeing you real fucking soon. That thing's getting parted out too. I'm just saying.
Oh gosh, this is not a vote against you either.
Hey man, okay, this is the Dunning-Kruger curve is coming back, okay? I always said the Dunning-Kruger curve is flawed because it shows one wave. And I honestly believe it goes in waves. I think there's multiple
in your
waves.
Eyes. In your eyes.
You are about to fall off the peak of Mount Stupid again.
Well, the other option I've been considering is going back to an EJ. But it's either EJ or LS. But I feel like EJ is going a step backwards.
Yo. I think you should live the de-stroker life, personally. I'm telling you.
I mean, it would be cool to like rev it out farther, but it's like the other thing you got to keep in mind. I've built so many Subarus at this point.
Yeah, I know, I get it, but have you built a There's more to it than just the engine. Let's get it right. I'm still to this day, and this is after getting out of a fucking Porsche the other day that I am madly in love with and still trying to look into buying. And I totally understand you got a fucking older, what is that, a 996 turbo, like so you have something to compare this to, and I get it, okay?
Yeah.
There is something to be said about a car that is so incredibly fucking right, a Subaru that is right, and it is so hard to get it there, especially once you add power and tire and everything else, and where it is just perfect. And I am telling you, my guy, we were to do like a 6 to 650 horsepower de-stroker, It would blow your fucking mind how much everything else made sense in that car. The gearing makes sense.
I'm gonna throw another wrench in there. Heavy Metal WRX throws in another good point. For YouTube, it's not interesting for me to build another EJ. So you also have to keep in mind whatever I'm building next still has to be something that will go back into the channel and get.
Should put an FA24 in it.
Dude. I just don't want to. FA is like. No, Damien and I talked about this a little bit. You want to make power? You brought up the FA. We said buy an EJ.
Yeah.
Well, probably not the most popular thing to do either. But the new, FB24.
I get it, but a lot of people said that about Rob Dom's shit for years too, and he's got 1 million subscribers now.
It's true.
Okay.
You're not wrong. Put a GR Corolla motor in it.
No. You want to piss some people off? Just take the Rob Dom route. Go buy a Corvette, okay, and stick an EJ in it.
I'll put an EJ in my RX-7.
Oh my god!
Dude! You want to piss Rob Dom off? That would be amazing. Internet.
Oh my god!
Oh my god! You'd have so many people so mad, and in almost every way, it would be an improvement.
The sacrilege.
It warms my heart.
You could do wiring harnesses. Yeah, gosh. There was a old Chevy pickup truck that had an IAG motor in it, and that was cool looking. And it was carbon fiber, everything.
Another thing that I'd like to see you do, which, don't get me wrong, you bomb down back roads and you're doing a little drag racing here and there. I would love to see you build a car for a class in Time Attack.
I can't afford it.
I get it, but with all the EJ leftover shit, I think you would be fucking surprised.
I'm not talking about the car. I'm talking about the racing. I can't afford it. That's the problem. That's why I go drag racing and I go to these back roads. We have the Ridge Motorsports Park out here, right?
I know.
And for a singular day for me, it is $400 just to sign up. And
I know.
Transportation costs. You know.
Wow.
You are preaching to the fucking choir, my dude.
No.
This is where you use your platform to get some shit working with you.
What do you mean? What do you mean get working?
I'm telling you, man. I'm not saying you're big YouTuber money by any means, but you would be surprised. I have almost no YouTube presence, okay, other than other people's shit, and I'm still able to use that. You have the ability to make good content. I think you'd be surprised the support you could get.
Yeah, but see, on the flip side, I feel wrong doing that because I feel like I take advantage of it.
No. If you're putting it into a program like that, you shouldn't feel wrong. Okay.
But I know I shouldn't, but like that's why I always feel guilty with that stuff because I still see myself as a normal dude and I don't like taking like handouts.
You are a normal dude.
Yeah, but see, it's like I don't. Maybe it's just where I'm at, but it doesn't feel right for me to accept a lot of stuff like that. Like I always feel guilty doing it.
Now, there's a difference between a handout and a racing sponsorship, and that's how you would have to figure that out. Okay, and it's different if you're bringing something to the table. You know, the partners that I work with, I've done a lot for them. They've done a lot for me. That partnership works. And again, we can go down racing sponsorship shit either. I think all I want to do is say that I think you're in a position to where if that's something you wanted to pursue, you're in a good spot to do it.
Yeah.
And I would love to help you do it. I would be more than happy to help you in that direction if you ever decided to wander that way.
Yeah. I need to get a functional car for that.
No, that's a thing, but you have like we can make that. We can figure all that shit out. That's easy stuff. And I'm not saying you need to come to my psychopath class either, because I sure as fuck wouldn't. I run with idiots. No, I think you should do something like instead of honestly, what Chaos Dreams just said, if you were to grab a new BRZ, that car is almost immediately competitive in Club TR. And there is so much, most of what you're doing is prep on your side, not spending money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is something we could talk about a completely different time. But for fuck's sakes, man, an LS in the goddamn car? You think you're going to come out here and cuss like that?
Bro, man, wait, let me ask you this. You can't tell me that it wouldn't be cool to have a fat cam and an LS twin turbos and that thing just not sounding wild. You can't
Man,
tell me it wouldn't
if
be
this
cool.
was, I wish it was still the 90s because I know what I'd say right now. I can't say that anymore. Okay, but what I am gonna say is it's fucking played.
Okay, but it works. That's the
Dude,
thing.
Okay, K-swaps work too, and they're still stupid. Okay,
I don't like.
we're in this game for the pain. Okay,
Well,
embrace the pain. I can understand where you've been, but you've got the support of everybody.
All I live in is pain.
I get it, my dude, but you gotta learn to love it.
Reliability for once.
Oh, brother, you're in the wrong platform. You're in the
You're in the wrong
game.
game. You're just in the wrong game. You're in the wrong game, dude.
Pain is what makes a Subaru a
hop
Subaru.
in your Porsche, enjoy that, it'll work, and then go back to the pain.
Oh yeah, cry it out in your Porsche. Oh gosh, yeah, I've heard everything.
I can't drive it anywhere. They're all broken at the moment. I got my Toyota.
Is it a Camry?
No, it's a Tacoma.
Oh, okay. Well, those things will run forever. But oh man, gosh, I haven't had this much fun talking about Subarus in a long time.
We live
But for real, I can't tell you how many guys are like, I'm gonna stick an OS in my Subaru, and they do, and they get it running, and then they're like, this kind of fucking sucks, and then they sell it, and they have a hell of a time selling it, and it's what you're gonna do.
Well, I wouldn't sell it. I would just part it out and put something else in there at that point.
Either way, it's gone. Okay, and that car ain't never gonna be right.
Wait. All right, let's back up here then. Let's back up for a minute. If you're in my position, what engine would you put in the car?
I already told you.
What, a D-stroke EJ?
I know you're bored as fuck of it. I know you are, dude. I know you are. But I'm telling you, EJs that run in well over 9,000 RPM get boners, okay? This shit sounds great.
Yeah.
It fucking looks awesome when you're showing your fucking tack and that fucker's rapping way past redline. That shit is cool, okay?
That's what I was doing before.
Yeah, but you were doing it and then break it immediately. Now do it and go shit on some kids.
Yes.
That's what I was doing in my hatch. That's what I did in my rotated hatch with the 6466. I was doing the same thing.
Were you doing it at 9K though? No.
I don't remember. I was going out
at 9K.
I don't know how far I was going out on that thing.
I don't think he's going backwards with it in the EJ. I honestly think EJs have came a long way. I think there's cool shit.
You know what's funny? I have a video that I still have to edit that's in my queue that goes over why the EJ is the best engine that Subaru's made.
I can't
I
wait.
actually have that in my video queue that I still need to edit.
I hope you get that done. I will share that. That will go straight onto our fucking onto our socials.
I'll edit it tonight so it can go up tomorrow.
Yes, sick. I love Safety Mike. Duramax your BRZ. Shut the fuck up, Safety Mike.
Full stumps.
Okay, what if I put two LSs in the car?
No. Now we're getting slapped.
How about you do whatever stupid thing you're going to do to this. Okay, hear me out. Okay? Because now you have some fabrication skills and you know some shit.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to go get an old L wagon. Okay, it's got to be a base and light as you can get.
Wagon.
I'm about to blow your effing mind. Not a sedan. It has to be a wagon. Okay. We stick a really high revving EJ in it. That was the whole concept. You make some decent horsepower. Now I need you to build a rear diff housing, okay, that has a separate pinion that goes straight up out of the diff housing into the trunk.
Why is it gotta be
and it is going to turn a fan.
I know where this. Oh yes.
And we are going to cut a hole where your passenger seats would be to the floor. We're going to seal the side skirts to the ground, and we're going to make a fan car. Okay, it's going to suck the thing to the ground. We're gonna take the old Chaparral 2J is what it was called. We're gonna steal that idea and we're gonna run it off of the rear diff. And the faster you go, the more downforce it makes.
Yep. That's a great idea. That's a lot of content right there.
That's a shitload of content, and you are gonna break the fucking internet if it works or not. And all of it's fabrication.
I mean, we can figure it out.
Yeah, all of a sudden you're not gonna sleep tonight because I'm gonna live rent free in your fucking brain for the rest of your life.
Bro, you already do. I wake up and Dewey's my first thought. I go to bed, you're the last thing I dream about.
I'm sorry. Oh man.
Oh,
Rotor.
man.
I do have a
Find a way to
fresh-
stack EJs. That would be awful. Like,
Ram it
I do
into
have
grid
a
life.
fresh 13B sitting in my shop right now, and I could do with all-wheel drive 13B.
oh, that I wouldn't be all mad about that.
I mean,
Somebody
I got
already kind of did that, but it would be
yeah.
sick. That would be sick.
Recorded single turbo 13B setup ready to go.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Put the LS in the RX-7. Then I'll make everyone else mad.
Yeah, see,
Yeah.
then everybody's pissed and you win. Now, you know what I'd like to see? I want you to stick an LS and an SVX. I saw it with a drift car once,
Oh, that's a great idea.
but
You-
it looks like it should be there. I think it'd be great.
Right? You won't catch me as an SVX owner. You will never catch
Oh,
me.
dude, those cars are
Okay.
sick.
Really? Well,
That's
it
fair,
goes
though.
back.
Very
It goes back
painful.
where I got rid of the EG, dude. You cannot get parts for him. You have to. Every SVX
That's
owner
fair.
I know
Yep.
owns 3 of them because they have parts cars. Because you cannot get parts for 'em.
Dan's in here, Dewey out here putting a whole golden corral with content ideas. This is shit I'd love to see, and I'm me, okay? I would follow. I'm just one guy, but I would love to get involved in some of this. If it's Subaru based content, you let me know. I am down to fucking. If there's something I can do, if I've got to shake trees or whatever to help you out, you let me know. Let's
Well,
do
if
dumb shit together.
Yeah, I mean, I'm down. If I put an EJ in the car, though, I have a fully built EJ set in my shop right now that I built. It's closed decked, half-inch stuff.
Yeah, what cranks in it?
It's factory crank.
You're fucking
it's
up.
not
Is it a
a
2-liter or is it a
No,
2.5?
It's a 2.5. But here's the
then
thing.
you done fucked up.
Going back into it. You gotta remember though, I'm a normal dude. If I'm spending the money, I already have this engine that's brand new, ready to go. That would
That's
go
fair.
back in the car. We need you back in it.
Yeah, but then all you did is put another engine back in it. You know, this is what I'm saying. Like, you got to do something slightly different. I get where you're at. You're a YouTuber. And then, you know what I'd love you to do? I would love you to make some content and explaining rod ratio. That would be awesome. Let's have
Yeah.
a whole talk about that.
You want me to explain the ratio of my rod to you?
Yes, the
I'm
ratio
sorry, I'm
of
getting
your
weird
rod.
now.
I want to talk
We got a little
about
bit
your
weird,
rod.
dude. I'm sorry. It's been a long day.
Oh my
Fat and
god.
happy at the Golden Corral.
This has
Some
been a
shit talk
fucking
comes.
great episode. Like,
Oh,
this was
dude, this is-
content front to back, dude. I don't
Yep.
know how we're gonna sew this thing up. This was great.
This is fun.
People will
This is
study
great.
this.
Yeah, they're gonna find this. AI is gonna study this in 2,000 years when they've taken over the world, and you know this is what they're gonna think Subaru enthusiasts were.
It's gonna be Cortana. You have like Master Chief and the Cortana
Yes.
AI going over all this.
They just name a Cortana Smeedia, and it's just you.
Little hologram.
Subaru guys aren't even at the gay bar talking about rods. Yeah.
Yo, it's okay as long as you don't make eye contact.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't touch and you don't make eye contact, and then it's totally fine.
Right.
Just the tip.
Yep. Gay chicken. All right, man. This has been a riot. You're always fun to have on. Tanner, you're great. I hope we can do more content like this. I love chat with you, so we definitely want to do this again. I want updates of whatever the hell you're doing. And I appreciate the hell out of the fact that you followed me through all the content that I've done, no matter what platform it's been on or what I'm trying to do, even though like I'm nowhere near the size of the content creator you are. But it's awesome seeing somebody who's I'm gonna be real. It isn't like you're big time YouTuber by any means, but I think you make fantastic content, and
Underappreciated.
wildly underappreciated content. And I actually look up to you as a content creator. So seeing you follow some of my content means a lot to me, and it's awesome having you on here.
Man, I fangirled when you asked me to be on here.
Dude, I was stoked as shit. I'm like, fuck yeah, man, this is gonna be a good one. Oh, poor 2.5 crank owners in shambles. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry to crush your dreams. Actually, we're gonna have a whole talk on that. If you're going up to, I guess I can kind of announce that right now. If you're going up to Wicked Big Meat They asked me today if I do a seminar, and we're gonna have a conversation about engine combos. I got a great name for this seminar. It's gonna be called "Different Strokes for Different Folks."
Oh my gosh.
Hey, we talking
Like-
about rod ratios?
Right? They should pay me for this shit.
You gonna
When it-
wait? Is there gonna be a show and tell also?
Maybe.
Ooh.
I'm gonna be trying to bring product there. Like usually, last time I got asked to do one of these, the last 2 times I got asked to do one of these, I got asked at the event, would you go over there and do a seminar for something? And I'm like, sure. And I'm like grabbing props and stuff. This time I'm on their ass. I'm like, I want to go up there prepared to actually put on a decent seminar. I want something that if you videotaped it, it makes some sense. You know what I mean? It's good content.
Yeah.
You know, because what it usually what happens is I go over something I know right off the top of my head really easy. So it's usually like suspension, you know, and in talking about like roll center, you know, real easy shit. This is why you can't overlower your car. And basically make fun of all the stance cars at it, which is hilarious. Good times.
Never gets old.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I bag my cars also.
I know, because you're a moron. I know.
It looks cool.
Yeah, but you're
But-
dumb.
But it doesn't
looks
function.
really- It looks cool.
Yes. No.
I'm glad we settled it.
You know what doesn't look cool? A car driving down the highway bouncing.
Wait, the audio. I didn't hear any of that. The audio cut out for me again. You could have just talked so much poop on me.
I
Yeah.
did. You know what doesn't look cool? A car driving down the highway bouncing.
Bro, my hatch was bagged and it made 760 wheel. That thing was a riot, even bagged.
Okay, and
You know what? It
looks
would have
cool
been
when I
better.
park.
It would have been better not bagged. And no, like,
I can't argue with you there because it probably
who remembers Cody Miles, who I love that guy. What a great dude. Okay.
Mhm.
But everybody, they used to point to him because he's this time attack guy from airlift all down the side of his car. Yeah,
Yes.
with a Hawkeye, and
Yeah.
he used to run, and everybody look at him and go, "Man, Cody Miles is so fast, and he's on bags." And the only answer I needed to have for that was, you know how much faster he'd be if he wasn't on bags?
hmm it's cool though, but
It was
Not
cool.
the same.
It proved that it could function, but it doesn't mean it's good. Okay,
It looks cool.
Yeah.
we ain't even
It's got
going
100
on that.
horsepower
Fuck
on
bags in
bags,
the
man.
ass, but whatever.
I
right.
will say, when I was full tilt in the hatch, it was a little bit sketchy on bags.
Fuck
I'll
yeah,
admit
it's
that.
sketchy
Well,
because your
yeah.
alignment's doing weird shit. You have the most
was a little
infinitely
sketch.
progressive spring in the history of the planet. Like,
Yeah.
none of it made sense. And God forbid,
inconsistent.
air is inconsistent going into each one of these bags. You're not really ever going to be at a set true ride height unless you've got the thing basically framed. Like, it's all dumb. It makes me mad. I'm angry now. Now you made me angry.
We'll convene a haters
wait,
ball
wait,
at
wait.
another time.
Dewey,
Yes.
I'm gonna give you an opportunity. I will put a D-stroked engine in the STI if you can guess the number that I just wrote down from 1 to 10.
From 1 to 10?
1 to 10.
4.
No, it was 7. It was 7.
Oh.
Chaos Dreams nailed it, dude. He
I was
freaking nailed
thinking
it. I even wrote
7.
it down.
Boy.
You know, I thought 7, and I'm like, there's no way he's going to pick 7.
I picked the most common answer for you.
I mean, it just makes sense. So I had
Brother.
okay. Well,
Okay.
we tried. All right. This has been great. It's been fun. It's been real fun. We got to do this again, dude. Again, I can't stress this enough. This was a riot. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for telling us your story and all its gory details. And hopefully we can have more stories and all their gory details. I would love to bring you out to a Grid Life event sometime just so you can experience it. So we're going to have to figure out a way to make that happen, okay? We'll figure it out. You'd be able to fly out dirt cheap. I guarantee I could get you in for cheap or free, probably free. And you just hang out with us for the weekend. So you wouldn't even have to get a hotel or nothing. You just crash in my RV. We'll have a great time. Okay?
I'm totally down for that. I like to get weird. I hope you get like.
Yeah,
to get weird.
it gets real weird, especially if we're winning shit and running around like pirates. You better be ready to get real fucking weird.
I'm down for the weird.
Pirate underwear, it's good time. So awesome. This has been great. It's been fun. It's been real fun. And we will see you guys next time.
Bye.